Hello, my name is Zhang, and first of all, thank you for inviting me to speak to the IU chapter of the IIDA. I'm a designer and graduate architect at PHANOMEN Design, located in downtown Indianapolis. I'm also a professor and instructor currently at IUPUI. I've taught various architecture design studios as well as computer application programs such as Rhino and CAD. I've prepared a few slides for us. Go ahead and share that. So I've pretty much covered this. At Phantom Design, I specialize in hospitality design, primarily restaurants. Provision is a project of mine that was completed roughly 5 years ago at the Ironworks Hotel in Indy. We also have several adaptive reuse projects and small architectural projects which help maintain some of the unique characteristics of downtown Indy, especially amid all of the new developments. These are a couple shots from a current project I'm working on. It is an Asian restaurant which is going into the historic Coca-Cola bottling facility in Indy. Obviously, the site is a bit of a hot mess right now, but I'm very excited for all of the historic features. As you can kind of see here in the pictures, and this large portrait of anime, which was just recently installed. Academically, my work is focused on our traditional mediums of representation, such as the plan, the section, and the model, and how that can drive a more critical design process. And this is the way it's sort of been translated by some of my students in my previous courses. So that's a little bit on my background. I've been asked to speak today on the perspective of being a male minority in a field dominated mostly by white females. And I have to say this was rather difficult for me to answer, because at the same time, I think it is extremely personal, but simultaneously, I haven't really given it much thought before because I think it's sort of really been sort of the norm for me, even way back when I started, interior design school. I've worked mostly with white women. Overall, I think it's been a very positive experience, and I've enjoyed working with most of my coworkers, which have been white females. So I guess I'm not sure what white females may have to say about me. To kind of help me speak on this subject, I've sort of had to divide it maybe into two parts, one on gender and one on race, which I believe both have a large role to play, not only in office politics, but also in what and how we design, which is sort of what I'll be focusing on in the next couple minutes. I also think it's important to note that while the interior design industry may be predominantly white female, you may often have to engage with architects who are still mostly white male, or contractors who are often Latino. And there's a lot of preconceived notions of each of these fields. For example, I did a quick Google search of interior design, and you'll sort of see the smattering of images. They're mostly interior shots of homes or residences. And I think this is partially driven by the ideas of traditional gender roles, which still sees women as the homemaker. Things such as textiles, color, pattern making are all sort of seen as traditionally feminine. And even the design industry today are often overlooked or almost regarded as taboo by architects, especially male architects, despite the importance and impact on our everyday lives by these things, right? I will say this has had an impact on me personally. Usually whenever I meet a stranger and tell them I'm an interior designer, I can just see them thinking really hardly, one, are you gay? And two, will you decorate my home, right? I think the second thing you'll sort of notice in these pictures is that the majority of all of these rooms are painted white. And I think especially, in the United States and in Western tradition, we've sort of been ingrained with this idea that form follows function or that less is more. Somewhere along the lines of modernism, simplicity became equated with sort of this moral design superiority. Now, besides Google, I think our curated design magazines have also sort of pushed forward this dialogue. And that's not to say that I think the color white or plain wood finishes is necessarily bad, but it does tend to lend to a homogeny of design that kind of suppresses maybe diversity or sort of the cultural significance of minority groups. Being Chinese, I've often heard that, Chinese food is cheap, right? And traditional design practices and motifs are often seen as theatrical or lacks design merit or value. And if you kind of think of the cheap Chinese restaurant, right? You often kind of picture these bright colors and rather ornate decorations. I think the same thing is often said of queer aesthetics. So despite its popularity in art and media, it's often a struggle for these minority aesthetics to gain a foothold in public spaces. Often being seen as not in good taste or perceived as inexpensive or sort of, worthless in design value, which always sort of reminds me of my favorite Freckle quote, right? That sometimes things that are expensive are actually worse. So I think it's important to remember that we all can and should bring our personal experiences to the table, and that what we design should be sort of reflective of our own individual backgrounds, and that the spaces we create can lend to diverse narratives. I feel like perhaps I sort of talked around the point a little bit without actually hitting on it, but hopefully, there was something you can take away from the last couple minutes. So if you would like, I am reachable on Instagram. I'm not particularly active there, but if you look up at Fairfax, you can reach me there, or, if you have any questions, I can always be reached by email as well. So thanks again for asking me to speak with you.